Hi. In this video I'm going to read to you the financial fairy tale entitled Baron von Bullmarket's Incredible Investments. It is covered on page 67 of 1,000,001 Dirham Financial Fairy Tales. And it's inspired by Baron Munchausen, obviously. Baron von Bullmarket's Incredible Investments. Investors sometimes like to show more return on their investment than they really made. If you are in any way expecting me to be among those investors, I strongly recommend you not to continue reading. My adventures in the markets I'm about to describe are true in ways that stories have not been true before. Really. People often ask me how I consistently manage to beat every benchmark with my investments. I never tell them I am talented or just lucky. They would not accept those explanations. They may think I am either not modest or that I pretend to be modest. Instead, I just tell them about some of my investments. I usually begin by telling them about my first investment as a child. I received a handsome sum of pocket money from my father, himself a keen investor in various assets, some private equity, but mostly dull bonds and equities. He gave me the following investment advice that was the best I have ever received. He told me, "Son, if you invest, make sure to buy low and sell high." My father has passed away, but I've never forgotten this wisdom. I am forever happy that I've been able to show him the remarkable yields I have achieved as a result. The first investment I made was at school, a Swiss boarding school for children of wealthy families. Most of my fellow pupils were also receiving large sums of pocket money. Even though they were still young, most were already keen to turn it into more. I told them I would invest their money in data, the new gold. They did not believe I would be able to do so myself as a child. They thought I would not be successful. I told them I would get help from my father, who had an impeccable investment track record. They eventually trusted me and gave me the money I told my father to set up a fund that would invest the pocket money of my fellow pupils. Luckily, the sums of pocket money they received made them qualified investors. There were no regulatory restrictions. My father did not really seem to understand my investment strategy, but he let me go. I believe he thought it was good for me to get some real market experience. He allowed me to act as a shadow fund manager. I made my father buy all metadata on phone calls from the fathers of my fellow pupils. I had agreed with a friend, whose father was very senior with the Swiss Secret Service, to have his father analyze the data to generate sensitive reports in return for a good share of the profits I would make. He collected all of it, calls with mistresses, bank accounts in Switzerland and in offshore jurisdictions, and sensitive data. True gold stuff. I advised all pupils of the results and requested them to enter into a non-disclosure agreement with their fathers, which they would sign in exchange for increasing their pocket money substantially. And I mean substantially. I pocketed a net return of 651%. It made me appreciate the versatile nature of data as an investment class. At my age of just 15, I'd become a star private data investor. I could not really leverage the success publicly, but my reputation grew exponentially. One of my more successful next investments was in crisis. I know you may frown your brows now, but it's true. Never waste a good crisis is what my father once told me. I have never forgotten his stories about the potential benefits of the volatility of a crisis. Waiting for one sounded a bit passive to me at the time. Why take a back seat? The thought I would make many people poor crossed my mind, but did not cause a heartache. C'est la vie, as they say on Wall Street. My French is not very good, but I believe it means something like, you win some, others lose some. It took me a few good weeks to create a global financial crisis and to make the biggest ever profit on the back of it. You may think that's a long period, but obtaining a banking license took most of that time. How I did it? I remember I set up a bank and lent myself something like a few trillion. I hedged the loan with my bank so I could not lose. I bought almost 500 million shares, which caused a huge increase of the stock price. I had bought a giant portfolio low and sold it very high. That by itself made me an instant billionaire. But I wasn't done yet. before I sold the shares, I took giant short positions on them. The big short on the US housing market was nothing compared to it. So when I sold the shares and their price went down again dramatically, I made a few more billion on them. It was that sale that triggered the global crisis. Very painful and long for many, but I managed to stay anonymous, so I did not really have to worry. I made many more investments that exceeded any benchmark. In fact, I never made traditional investments that were comparable to a benchmark. I like private equity for being a more active way of investing. Turning a company upside down and creating value instead of just putting money in selected companies and betting they would do it themselves. I had always enjoyed making a difference myself. The last investment I will tell you about, my dear readers, is one that I was most surprised about myself. I had started to feel a bit isolated after my previous investments. I was not invited to parties anymore. Friends no longer returned my phone calls. I was getting the impression my alpha choices to beat the benchmark had something to do with it. I decided to make a bold switch. I dubbed my next investment strategy to be the Alpha and Omega. I launched a fund of funds under that name that acted as a feeder fund for a number of do-good funds. I personally managed all of them and invested in a number of good causes. I created new benchmarks, such as the number of cured patients per invested dollar for the Bullmarket Healthcare Fund, the CO2 reduction benchmark for the Bullmarket Green Fund, the drinkable water per human being benchmark for the Bullmarket Drinking Water Fund, the quality of animal life benchmark for the Bullmarket Animal Fund, the peace benchmark for the Bullmarket Peace Fund, and more. Within a year, I achieved some remarkable returns on investment. My hospitals cured more than 60% of the world population. I lowered the global temperature by 5 degrees Celsius. I gave over 80% of the world's animals a happy life. 9 billion people received purified water, and I eradicated armed conflict in as much as 90% of wars around the world. It has been an incredible journey beating every possible benchmark. I'm satisfied to have achieved all of this. The investors have also shown to be delighted with the results. It has taken some time, but I'm pleased to see friends returning phone calls and to be invited to parties again. There are different friends and different parties, but it feels good. I lived happily ever after, eternally.